good evening. Thank you for joining in to another career conversation with Black Career Women's Network. This is Sherry Sims, your founder and CEO, and thank you for joining us. Tonight we have a special guest. Her name is Stephanie D. Moore with That PR Chick in Oklahoma City, my hometown. Whoop, whoop. Say hello, Stephanie.
Hey, everybody. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, tonight's topic is going to be about career and the single mom. But before we get into that, I want to share for all of you who are viewing for the first time, please make sure to join to become a member at bcwnetwork.com and become a member of the network. We have 35 online communities all the way from London to Toronto, Canada, and making sure that you're getting connected with Black career women online to make sure you do that. You can also tonight you can tweet your questions, any quotes, anything that resonates with you. Tweet it at on our Twitter account, which is at BCW Network. You can also tweet me as well at BCW Network CEO, or you can also get onto our Facebook page, and also you can put your questions there as well. For those of you who are already in the Google Hangout, you can just use our Q&A question box, and Stephanie and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. All right, so Stephanie, let's go ahead and get started. Career and the single mom. Let's talk about that. I know that we have 3 areas that we want to cover tonight about career and the single mom, which is really 3 crucial pieces, and they all kind of tie in together. Don't you agree? We're talking about emotional. We're talking about emotional, and what else did we say? Emotional,
Finance. We're going to talk about emotional, finance, and then social, like the social, how women are affected.
Go ahead and go into that real quick in terms. Let's talk about the emotional pieces of that. And before we do, tell them a little bit about you and who you are, and that she also is a BCW career mentor as well. So share with them a little bit about what you do in Oklahoma City, Stephanie.
I am so excited to let you know that I own More Marketing and Communications. We help small business owners develop larger brands. We also help business persons develop a better brand as well. So we offer services in marketing, advertising, graphic design, web design, social media. If it has anything to do with getting the word out, that's what we do. We also serve the community in a number of different ways. We have programs that cater to teen girls, like She's a Boss, for young ladies ages 12 to 17. Grind a House, which is ages 17, who are suffering from low self-esteem and need to push forward in life. So, the community, we're very excited to be here today and to talk about being a single mom, because I am a single mom having to juggle it all, and it's not always easy for us, you know?
No, it's not always easy for us, and we have to juggle so many things. So talking about the emotional, the social, and the economic pieces of what it is to be a single mother is important in terms of what really want to dig deep into that. And some of the things we say resonate with some women, and it may, and for others, we hopefully that it will. But that's part of the dialogue. So hopefully we'll get women who will be coming on and really kind of sharing their stories, or at least having questions that we all can relate to, or some stories about that. So let's talk about the emotional aspects of that. So I'm currently a single mom. I'm not doing this because I am. I'm doing it because there's a lot of us who are, right? Including yourself. So share with me, and it doesn't have to be anything current, but share with the viewers what were aspects in building your career that you have now, some of the emotional aspects that you remember that stand out from really trying to establish yourself as this career woman in the industry, but then also balancing out motherhood, the finances pieces, your social life, all of those things, the emotional standpoints from trying to balance those things out.
For me, I have 2 girls that are teenagers, which says enough in its own right. And then I also have a very demanding job. My job is very performance-based, so I have to hit my numbers. I have to be successful in what I do. And when my emotions aren't balanced, it's usually because I'm not taking care of my health, or I'm not taking care of myself spiritually, or perhaps I'm not taking care of myself mentally, emotionally. And so what happens is that what is becoming built up inside of me, because usually there's a buildup before there's a bubble out. So you want to prevent the burst out, and you want to be able to start to recognize the signs that you're overstressed, or that you're not taking care of yourself, you're not getting enough sleep, or you're just not communicating the way you need to. One thing that you and I talked about earlier today is it's so important for a woman to have a journal and reflect on how she felt in a moment, so she can actually see how greatly her emotions are affecting her and affecting how she interacts with everyone around her, especially her children, because we only get one opportunity to raise a child. So for me, being in a performance-based industry, which had its own stress, and then having teenage girls, and I say, I've been a long time, for more than 10 years, and they weren't always teenagers, but they blossomed into these teenagers. And with my work schedule, full-time for a television station, and had my own company, and I'm raising the girls, plus I'm trying to do these community events, it was impossible for me to be successful in every area of my life. In fact, I would only be excelling in one of those areas. And so you have to pay attention to what's going on around you, and you also have to have, I feel, a support circle, a circle of support, people that you can call on and lean on, because if you're trying to carry everything on your own, you're going to fall, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be really ugly, and you're not going to have a great way to explain what's going on.
Well, I think that the trigger word you said was support system, is having that. That's hugely important, is having that support system. If you don't have that, there's more than likely there's going to be a time where you're going to miss out on the opportunity to be promoted, or maybe turn down a job because you don't have that support system. And for someone like me who moved away moved away from home, after being divorced with a toddler, pretty much, where was that support system? And I think that moving away like that for me, and having to find babysitters and being able to work late and all those things were a challenge, because it was just us. When I lived at home, it was easier because I can call my mother. It took a little bit of the stress load off of me when I did have, the circle of my family around. And when I was taken away, the stress level went up here. And then it's like, where do you balance out? Oh God, I need a break. I want to be able to just go out and kind of let my hair down. And it's like you said, to find a babysitter for those social things too. And that was hard. So I think that they say it takes a village to raise a kid, but as a single parent, it takes 3 or 4 villages.
Right. Some people that truly love you, that love you to your core, because most of the time, there are going to be some situations where you really need some help. And as single parents, a lot of times we try to carry that on our own because we feel some badge of shame with asking for help. But in all honesty, it's our responsibility to serve our children with excellence, to ask for help. We can't do everything on our own. We were never created or intended to carry everything on our own. And so we have to learn how to, in humility, ask for help. We can't expect to do it all on our own, because we're going to crash and fail, and then we'll feel like failures. So we have to do is, like you said, have that, will develop people that truly love you. So when you're having car trouble and you need a ride next 4 days and messing up your mom's schedule or your sister's schedule, then you just have to have that circle, and you just have to say, I know this sucks, but I really need your help. And understand that, they don't have to be happy to give you help. They just have to be willing to give you the help, and you have to be, graceful enough to accept it in whatever shape it comes. Because we need the help.
And I think you want your kids to see that you're being resourceful, right? I mean, that you're finding resourceful ways to make things happen, and that it shows that you're problem solving and you're able to figure things out, because you want them to be able to do the same. When that's the way I see part of that, is that you want to make sure that they can problem solve and learn how to be resourceful and find ways to resolve any challenges, roadblocks that they may hit. I know for me, I want my daughter to be able to see that. that there's not just one way to get things done, that you can take different avenues to accomplish your goal, and being resourceful in doing that. So I, and
Right. And
you
I
have any
think,
stories? Go ahead.
mhm.
Can
No,
you?
I was gonna say, I think well,
Okay.
like be resourceful and just letting them know, having that real conversation. Well, Mama got laid off, so everything in life is about to change, and you have to have those real conversations because you don't want them to think they're in a lollipop fairyland and hide everything from them. You want to be very real and even almost, I would say, transparent with your children so that they really have an understanding of what's going on around them. Yes, we are about to get our cable, turned off, or we're about to turn the cable off, or we're about to make some changes, and we're not going to go out to eat every Friday. We're not going to do that anymore because we need to save money, and we have to survive. So I think having those real conversations with your kids makes them more responsible, and it also makes them realize that why we're working and what we're working for, and that money doesn't grow on trees. They have these cell phones and they want to buy games and then they want to go out and do this and do that. And, they have all these responsibilities that need to be taken care of, and they don't realize that there has to be balance there. So I
Yeah.
think when we're resourceful, we have budgets, that is what is most important. So, yeah.
you have
And
to you have to make sure that they understand that, and I think for me, I know for my daughter, love her to death, but when if I said, for instance, kind of, taking that leap to do, to full time to do the network, and I said, you know what, there's going to be some things that are going to be cut back, going out as much. I'm going to be cooking more at home and being more resourceful in those areas, and because going out to eat a lot is a luxury and things like that. And so it's like,
right,
I look at that to say, okay, now let me see what kind of character you have too, in terms of being able to understand that, because they can either take away some of the pressure from being understanding, or they can actually add some pressure from the stress. And they
yeah,
can add stress to that if they're being demanding and not really understanding or seeing the bigger picture in terms of what's needing to be sacrificed to make sure that that things are staying balanced at home. And
yeah.
so that sometimes I think your children can put those expectations on you, and that can add more stress to what already on your plate from an
Hmm.
emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
Is what it can do. So let's talk about the
Mhm.
social aspects of your career and being a single mother. The social aspects of that.
Right. Well, I think there is such a stigma and a stereotype attached to a single mom. None of us walk into single momhood expecting to be single moms. We at some point were in a relationship we expected to last much longer than it obviously did. But I think in corporate, especially in corporate situations, if you're in a conservative market, they expect or they look highly upon women that are married. They look at them as being more stable, emotionally, financially, almost in every way. And I've seen personally where people that are married, or women specifically that are married, get promoted faster than single women.
Right.
And yes, we do need help. Yes, a single woman. If I'm at the job and there's something that happens to my car, I'm going to ask one of the guys in my office to come and help me because I don't know how to fix a car. And I think when you are a person that may need help from time to time and you don't have a husband to say, hey, can you come check on the car? There's something going on. Or even if you're trying to carry the whole load on your own and you have these emotional issues going on, you don't have anybody to vent to or anybody to share that load with, I think they look at you as an emotional, possibly volatile, which all this could be true about you, because you haven't found a way to outsource that. So I think socially in a business office, there are so many stereotypes that are automatically, or labels you can say, that are automatically attached to a single woman. That she's walking into any corporate ladder with a fight on her hands. I mean, she's going to have to fight twice as hard as the woman next to her who may have a nice husband that is taking really good care of her, or he may not even be taking good care of her, but the perception of each woman is different just because one of them is single. So I think we face, those challenges as well. And, this is the Black Career Women's Network. So you add Black, single, and you got some kids.
Yes.
How many, the stereotypes just add up. And so you really have a fight on your hands. And so you end up having this internal battle to be perfect. I have to be perfect. I have to do better than the next person. And you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to work really extremely hard, I believe, in order to be valued, to really be truly looked at as someone that can be raised in the corporate ladder. So
So
socially, I think we have a lot of issues.
do you think that sometimes that we can be our own worst critic or a little bit harder on ourselves because we may think there is this imaginary perception in the workplace, and it may not be like you said, but I think, do you think that we work harder, absolutely, but do you think we overcompensate because we feel like that we may not fit in with that whole, I'm married with the kids and all that, and that I am single doing it, and money may be okay, money may not be okay, but do you think a lot of
Right.
it is us versus it really being truly in the workplace?
The reality.
Hmm.
Right. A careful middle. You know what I mean? Because, some workplaces are really cool. Like, you have some employers that get it, that understand, that perhaps the person running the office or the owner was raised by a single parent. They get it, then what you're going through. And I think as a single parent, because we are internalizing everything, and sometimes if we're not in a positive romantic relationship, then we may even, look at ourselves like there's something wrong with me. We may walk around with this stereotype of negativity, and we may push that on every area of life. You know what I mean? So I think that's definitely possible. Definitely some women that carry that, with them, and I think that there are definitely some employers that understand, the culture of a single woman, black, white, or other, they just understand that culture. So that definitely there could be perception issues and a high sensitivity, but I also think that, that's a valid thing in some places as well.
Yeah, I do. I think it could be half and half on both parts with that. I mean, yeah, I do think sometimes it's part of it is us because we feel like we are the odd man out, and especially if we're not dating, and it's just we truly are just single in that aspect. Um, I know for me,
Hmm.
early on, there were times when I did feel like I was the odd man out, in terms of, we're having the Christmas parties and everybody's bringing their spouses, and I'm the only single one there with no date. It's like, why you didn't bring a date, Sherry? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. So yeah, sometimes it can make you
Right.
feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm like, maybe I didn't want to bring a brother with me. How about that?
Right.
you know,
Right. He
maybe I
does
didn't
not
want
have
to be,
access to this area yet. Right.
maybe
Yeah.
I'm being picky about who I need to bring. And then, of course, so, I mean, have you ever experienced the matchmakers, right? The matchmakers in the workplace? Have you experienced the matchmakers in the workplace?
Right. Oh yeah, most definitely. And I serve in a lot of brand, and it was so funny. She was like, "Oh my God, Stephanie, isn't he so cute?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he all right," And she's like, "I think you two look great together." I'm like, "I don't even know him though." You know what I mean? And it was like and I don't think it comes from a bad place. I think people just want to see you taken care of. They want to know that you're okay, and I think that comes from a place of love, and they don't realize sometimes that it can be irritating. Like,
Yeah,
please don't keep offering to set me up with somebody.
I know.
Because it happens. It
And I think
definitely
I
happens.
think sometimes that the perception can come off too, Stephanie, is that when we are handling everything to the best of our ability, and it may appear that we have it all together, that
Mhm.
they may not really offer support or be at, we may want it, but we're not asking for it, but they may assume we don't need it because we look like we're handling and balancing everything out too. Well, that may not be the case. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes that perception can be, we can think no one really cares or no one is being supportive when they may look at you and think, well, she look like she got it, so I don't, maybe we don't need to ask if she needs any help. And I think that's just another perception, another error that sometimes we can give off, not consciously or purposely, but because we do
Hmm.
have to balance it all. I think that sometimes they can look at us and say they look like they may not need any help. They got this, you know.
Right. And I can say so many times I've had emotional things going on at my house. My daughter, comes to me and says, "Hey, I think I want to date women." And I'm like, I have no idea how to really perceive that. And so, you kind of carry that with you the next day because you don't really have anybody to vent to
Uh-huh.
or to share. You parent as well. And I think that sometimes as parents, we're trying to figure it out all on our own. And we don't have, I really like when mom talks to me about this because she explains it better.
Yeah.
Or I really like when dad talks about that because he explains it better. And I see in two-parent families that a lot of times parents have different roles. Well, in a single parent family, we get to wear all the roles. That means we get to be the cook, we get to be the cleaner, we get to be the breadwinner, we get to be the disciplinarian. We get to wear every hat there is, and sometimes it's overwhelming for us. So I think it's also really important for us to know when we need to take a break or when we need to really devote some time to self-care because I think that's really important and it'll only help us. But I think that sometimes we get because we haven't taken the time to really take care of ourselves, and we're trying to wear every hat that there is. So yeah. So I know for me, that's definitely been the case. I'm the queen of blowing up on people when I have had way too much, haven't taken stopped and taken the time to really, care of me.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm the one that gets volatile. So I'm the one they say, oh, the little angry black girl in the corner office. Because I'm like on the wrong day. You don't want to come in here with that issue. I already gave you an answer for that. Why are you back? So and I have no problem saying that, because it's something I have to grow into. You really grow into go parent, but it's not easy, and sometimes you just figure it out along the way. So,
That's true. And I like, and it goes back to what you said, Stephanie, is that not women are not setting out to become single mothers. It's not like it's on the list of things in our life to achieve, which is becoming, or being a single mom. Life does happen. Things happen. People split, grow, whatever the case may be, die, whatever, and find yourself in this place where you are raising your kid, uh, children, or whatever by yourself. And I do think that sometimes I think women can sacrifice things for the children. And then I think that
yeah,
that's me when you sacrifice everything for just the children, which means your own personal needs and desires, including your career, where you may just decide you don't want to pursue
yeah,
a specific career because of your kids. Then what are you really saying to are you really being true to yourself in your desires to better yourself and the energy level that comes with feeling achieved, accomplished, and working in what you feel is your gifts and strengths. And to me personally, I think that I necessarily didn't sacrifice that. I pursued it more when I
hmm,
became a mom because for me it was important to have her see the ambition of wanting to go further, do better, and what it's going to take to get there. Versus mom worked 3 jobs to pay the bills and was afraid to pursue her dreams, and put those on the back burner for me. So I think sometimes that we need to stop being, sometimes be selfish and stop being selfless, if that makes sense.
right. It
Because
does make perfect sense. Go ahead.
no, I mean, I think because there needs to be a balance. Now, we're not saying go out there and date 50,000 men and bring them home. We're just saying
Right. Don't bring
that probably was not
yeah,
necessary for me to say. But what I'm saying is that, you have to pick and choose what's going to be important for you to have some sort of fulfillment in your life because eventually your kids will grow up, they will move
right.
away. And the sacrifice you made, maybe they may be thankful for it and they may not be thankful for it, you know. So you have to kind of think about that. But you do, I think the balance for me and my perspective comes when you do have some sort of satisfaction in some particular area of your life. And for me, having that career fulfillment was important, to have that and to have her see that you can pursue that, and still, you know, accomplish what you want to. And then of course, economically be able to do it so you can take care of your child without having to be challenged in a lot of areas. Don't get me wrong, there's been some times throughout my career early on when I was like, that light bill ain't getting paid, that cutoff notice. That's real, you know. I mean, that's real. It's like, okay, you know, we may have to go sleep at our, you know, at our Lisa house tonight because it ain't, you know, because I don't have the money, and that's just real talk. And so,
yeah, it's so real.
Yeah, it's so real. And those are the times where, you know, you, like you said, you have to just let them know, you know, they'll be back on tomorrow, whatever the case may be. But, you know, sacrificing in the areas that's good, but then you still have to have something, because that running on E as a, you know, trying to, you know, do all that for the kids and not really balancing it out for yourself, is that does more harm than good.
Yeah, it really does. And you know what? And I'm so glad you said that, because it kind of segues into something else I want to address. If we're not satisfied with who we are, whether that's in our career or as a parent, what we'll do is we'll start to tumble down a path of self-destruction. We'll start to make really bad choices. And I know you see the news stories, right? Where, you know, a single mom, oh, she left her kid. I mean, we all saw the story where the single mom left her children in the car to go in for a job interview and ends up getting arrested. Now, you know, I have mixed feelings about that, because I understand what it's like when you are trying to provide for your child. You don't see any other option. You don't see any other way. Now, we're not trying to stay out there by yourself. You don't have any money to pay a babysitter. You don't know anybody. You don't want to trust anybody else with your kids, but you're trying to survive. You know, and a lot of times people look past what you, unless you directly ask for help, and even then, sometimes somebody might say no. So, you know, when you are facing a hard time as a single parent, I think it's so important to be spiritually connected, you know, to your maker, and I think it's so important to know how to express that, and really pursue help, you know, in any way that you can get it, you know, and not feel any shame, because if you don't, what will happen is you will tumble down a path of you'll make poor choices, like bringing guys home to your house,
Yep.
just so that you can get attention you're not receiving. You may do drugs, or you may, you know what I mean? So there are so many different doors that are open to you if you want to make bad choices. And it's so easy to make that choice because you feel like nobody sees me anyway. Nobody sees me going through all this. Nobody knows I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul so I can keep the lights on, or so I can get my car fixed, so I can get to work. Nobody at work understands what it took for me to get to work today. Like, you know, I had to jump start my car 3 times this morning just to get from point A to point B, and then to just be here and listen to you sometimes berate them, you know, depending on the type of position that they have or the way that they serve. So, you know, we don't always see what single moms go through emotionally and physically, financially, before they get to the office, before they even step
Absolutely.
foot
I mean, you're right about
through
that.
the.
But when you started saying that, I remember specifically one time I had to go to a training in Detroit, and I drove this was years ago, and I had a truck, a SUV, and I drove the SUV, and you know, when I was there, you know, the truck wouldn't start. I mean, I was there, and then at the hotel, and then the next morning I had to drive my truck to the place to get, you know, for training, and my truck wouldn't start. And so, you know, I had already had these overwhelming feelings because I was transitioning to this new job, and I had just moved in out of state and all these things. I was truly just us by myself. And when the truck didn't start, I just sat there and started crying out of nowhere. I mean, I started just crying because it was almost like,
Yeah,
what next? You know? Yeah, I mean, I already was feeling like, okay, I'm doing all this by myself. I'm trusting my child with a friend, but yet still I don't know what all is going on in that environment while I'm gone. So I'm worried about that. But then here I am, you know, taking this training for the next 3 days. And so all that stress, and I think it was just piled up on top of all of that with the stress of being gone, you know, she's in an environment that I'm okay with, but I've known this friend for a long time, but still you never know what your friends are into, right? And then I think it just
Right.
all just came crashing down on me in that truck. And I'm just like boo-hooing. And of course I got out and had somebody give me a jump. But it was just for the
Right.
key not to start, and I was already stressed out to here. It was just like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm done. And then I had to pull together.
Right. Put a full
It just all
like
came
game
out.
over.
We got a question
Mm-hmm.
from, we have a question from a viewer. Hey, Whitney. It says, what advice do you have for millennial women who may become pregnant unexpectedly early in their career? What ways can you continue to build their career? What ways can they continue to build their career while pregnant and set a path for post pregnancy? That's a great question.
Well, that is a really good question. It's a
Really good
and you know what? I love the fact that when I was young, you know, millennial will career. So I love the fact that she's already focused on her career, and she's already determined that she wants to continue her career. And I think one of the things that you can do is start to set up a network of people around you that will support you and that will help you move further in your career. So these are career-minded individuals, people that you network with on a regular basis, that know your situation and understand your situation. Because when you come back and you want to, okay, daycare, that's critical. You know,
Yes.
daycare is very
They
important.
can critical and expensive.
And you have to be really careful about who you choose to watch your child. Not everybody has your child's best intentions at heart, and it takes time to find the right daycare, and especially a child that young. So if you're going right back to work, you stay on LinkedIn. Stay on LinkedIn, stay communicating, know what's going on in the office, you know, always, you know, be talking about that. And I think that there are a lot of things that you can do while you're pregnant to prepare for that place, like building those networks on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, those kind of things that you'll have access to. And keep communicating. Pick up the phone and call your coworkers. Find out what's going on. Be involved. You don't have to be absent or gone from the picture just because you're pregnant. What do you have to say, Sherry? What do you want to add?
Well, I think I want to add is that, you know, I definitely, again, everything you said is right on point. And but the support system that you also need to have is the women that are going to be around you to give you the real deal, because you are going to be transitioning from being a single person to a parent. And
Mm-hmm.
what women don't talk about when it comes to these pregnancies is the changes that come about within you physically and emotionally. And sometimes people, you know, women are struggle with their identity once they become a mother. You know, they kind of want to fall back into their old ways of how they used to be when they, you know, their old single ways. Even if they're with
Mm-hmm.
a man, it's not about the single piece in terms of that. It's about who you were before you became a mother. And some women do not know how to be able to transition over and make that change. And I remember specifically when I was pregnant with my daughter, my mother said to me, when you give birth, you're going to cross over. And I was like, what the hell does she mean by cross over? I'm
We
like,
have no
am I gonna
idea. That means you're going into the twilight zone.
die?
Not to
thought,
scare you.
I thought, what is she talking about? I'm gonna. And so when you give birth, you're gonna cross over. And I'm thinking, cross over into what? And when I, you know, of course, had my daughter, and it was immediately, probably within the first week or two, I automatically understood what she meant by that. It clicked for me immediately that that old Sherry is gone. That old me, that old single, you know, that old single. I was 30 when I had my daughter, but you know, that person's gone. Now I've got to have a completely different mindset. And you do want to hold on to some of those single ways when you first have the kid, or you want to hold on to some of your old identity. So I think if anything, you have to embrace the transition of becoming a mom and figuring that out, along with trying to balance out how you're going to continue your career, because you can end up having an identity crisis because you're still trying to do things as if you didn't were responsible for nobody but yourself, versus thinking
Right.
about the daycare. Now I can't stay till 6 because I got to pick up the kid from daycare at 5:30 now. You know what I mean? Those types of things, because they'll charge you $5,000 per minute
Yeah.
if it's late.
They sure in a heartbeat. And then yeah, so I remember a friend, no, at this conference I just went to, she said, I get there at 6 and the janitor's there with my child, and my child's last one in the building. The janitor's there with my child, and he is handing me an invoice, and I think that was Sherwood at the Fab New You conference. What we don't understand is that when we become just decided to sacrifice our lives, well, to a degree, for the lives of our children. Thank God, He trusts us to be a steward over this life, and He trusts us enough to treat her in love. So when I had my child, she was born December 28th, and by New Year's Eve, I was like, is somebody gonna watch this child so I can go out? And after 3 days after I had the baby, I'm looking at him, he looking at me. I'm like, this is not the business. I know.
But you know what? That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, though, Stephanie, is that's what I mean exactly, where you have to kind of remember, okay, you got to give up, not give it up necessarily, but you got to know when to incorporate those types of things back into your life. So you just can't give birth and be like, right, okay, business as usual.
This child 3 days old, and I'm already like, yeah, we need somebody to come watch you. It's not happening. 19, I was like, okay, this is a reality check. And it was like, I'm not even cool sitting here with you, like, with the baby's dad. I was like, I'm not even, and he's my husband, but I was like, I'm not even cool with you. I don't even want to be here with you. I need to get out this house.
Right. And,
and it was like,
it's so fair, because another thing too is that when you do become a mom, and then you have this career, right? But then you still sometimes you feel guilty about certain things. When you do want to go out and have a break, you know what I mean? It's like, oh God, and you start to feel guilty about that. Or there may be moments and opportunities that you have to have in your career that sometimes you wish you could share with your child. Because I remember one time, I had to go to a recruiting manager conference when I worked for this one company, and they flew, we all had to fly to Orlando, and we spent 2 days at Universal Studio and Islands of Adventure. And my daughter was really, really young, and my mother kept her while I was there. And and I enjoyed myself, but I didn't enjoy myself to the full. So the whole time I'm at Universal Studios, and the whole time I was at Island of Adventure with my coworkers, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my daughter should be here with me having this fun. You know what I mean? And so that for me, that was one of those defining moments that I knew that I wanted to be incorporating her in so many different aspects of what I do in my life, and sharing that with her all the time. And so I bought her a ton of stuff while I was there.
I love you so much.
Yeah, I was in Nickelodeon studio and just racking it up, because I was like, I'm gonna get her all this, because I really was deep down inside, I really wish she was there with me to enjoy that experience. And those are the moments where you could see that.
Because the thing is,
I couldn't hear you, Steph.
No, I was gonna say, as a single parent, that's who you come home and communicate with every day. So that it's almost like they're your kids, but they're also your friends. They're your outlet. You share what you can with your kids, and so you love being around them. You love sharing their lives. Kids have a phenomenon you need to know a lot of times. And so I think as a parent, as soon as you become a mom, you have this innate sense in you that I just want to be with this person forever.
Most mothers do. Most mommies.
Yeah. Some of us, we ain't gonna talk about the horror stories, but yeah, most of us do. Yeah, so so being a single mom is really a great thing if you really learn how to navigate it. And I think the easiest way to learn to navigate it is to look at those that walk before you. So if there are any women that you admire in your family that have done it, take the time to sit down and have a conversation with them. Ask them, what do I need to know? Are you there to help? You know what I mean? So I think that you can do it successfully if you take the time to really research and find the resources that you need to be successful. Otherwise, you try to do it in the dark with your eyes closed, girl, it's going to be a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, a lot of pride that needs to get broken down, and you'll just need help. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah, you're
But you
right.
can have a career. You
But
can be
you can
successful.
do it. You can, and we're going to talk about some of the things that Stephanie and I are going to talk about some of the things that we've been able to achieve in terms of being able to be successful. There is another
Yeah.
question we have here. It's when should a single mother pursue entrepreneurship? When a child reaches teen years, when they are out of the house, or should the financial situation of the mom look? What should it look like for this to happen?
Wow. Do you want? I can. I want to answer that if you
Go,
don't want to answer.
go right ahead. I'll come behind you.
All right. Thank you. Personally, I believe if entrepreneurship is calling your name, that you should do it the minute you feel it. And I say that because there's no need to wait. When you start your business, start. So you can't wait until you feel like you're in this safety net. And Sherry may have a different answer, but this is what I believe. I believe if it's in your heart to make it successful, and it doesn't matter how young your child is. That now you might wait until they're at least 2 or 3, but I think 2 or 3, it's go time. Go ahead and get to it. I don't see any reason why you should wait if you want to start your own business. I think to me, it's the goal. I feel like when you work for a company, and this is work for a company, you learn a lot with companies. They teach you a lot. However, you're helping build some of a dream that's in your heart. I don't think there's any reason you should wait to achieve it because you have a lot of purpose in your life and you want to achieve as much as possible. So I don't think you should wait. But Sherry, what do you think?
No, I don't think you should wait either. And I know that my journey came about in a divine way, but I think it was meant to happen when it was supposed to happen. Which
Mm-hmm.
my daughter happened to be a teenager at the time that it kind of evolved into entrepreneurship, because that really entrepreneurship was not on my radar to do that. But I think that now that I'm in the middle of that journey, it would have been nice if she was younger, because I think that the transition for both me and for the child would have been a lot easier, because my daughter's a teenager now, so she has certain expectations, and she's used to me being a specific way. And now that everything is turned upside down, it's like, what are you doing? That's not what I'm used to. And I think because now they're teens and they have voices and opinions and mouths, it's like it's more
Right. You're
like
like, okay,
they
you're
say,
supposed to be 8 to 5
yeah, I'm supposed to be 8 to 5,
Friday.
or you home on the day now, so why isn't my dinner made? You have a seat. So no, I do think you
I
should
agree.
wait, because really, honestly, you're setting, if you're staying focused on the goal, you're setting yourself up for success, along with your, and also for your child as well too. And so it depends on how you look at that. But I agree 100% with you that there's no need to feel like there has to be a time frame for that, to do that. I mean, that's just like saying don't go back to
Yeah.
school
You
until
don't
they're
even
older, because, for whatever reason, when you have a lot of people who have young kids and pursue their education at the same time.
yeah, anyway.
Hmm.
I don't think a certain level of education that says, oh, it's just crazy. I think, we should be lifelong learners anyway. So, and while your kids are young, and teach them as you go. And kids are sponges, so they absorb whatever you're willing to share with them. At just about any age. I started teaching my daughter the ABCs and how to count. In 10 months, 10 months, she knew how to count to 10, and she knew half the alphabet. By 3, she was reading every sign we passed. So I think don't question how much your kids know. Learning to read at such a young age makes them very intelligent as they go into elementary school, high school, that kind of thing. So, you know, always grow. I think growing is just a part of life. It's very organic. It's what we do. So don't be afraid to get out there and take risks. Just make sure you got that circle around you. Because if you fall, you're gonna need somebody to help you back up. But
Yeah, yeah.
don't be afraid to take risks. Just happier. And even when we do fail, we feel like we really learned that great lesson. So
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think sometimes too, sometimes you take risks. I know for me, I took risk when I built my career in HR. I took risk um, with building my career, economic risk at that, because, and what I mean by that is, I took contract jobs that didn't offer any kind of benefits, but the pay was high. It was a really good paying contract job that didn't offer benefits, but the money provided for me to take care of my daughter. It provided for us to be able to take trips and do things, and the risk came from not having the medical insurance, not having those things that really we needed to have as the cushion. But I took the risk of being able to be financially, stable, and being able to pay my bills and still have money left over to save or take a trip. And if my car broke down, I didn't have to worry about it till payday because I had something already. I can go ahead and get it fixed immediately. So for me, that took the stress off me in the area of, yeah, but what if she falls and breaks her arm? Okay, now I don't have any insurance coverage. And I didn't do it for like a very, very long time, but I knew economically it could get us to a good place as I continue.
Yeah,
As I continue to,
mhm.
really, build this portfolio of experience that can lead to this full-time position with benefits. And it did eventually do just that. But it was a risk that I was taking, and I ended up doing it for 2 years, staying at that assignment for two
Yeah.
2 years. But we were comfortable, and thank God I was watching every move she made, because I went to the ER and we was a wrap. So that was one of the financial risks that I took. Economically for me, that was one
Yeah.
of the things
And
I took, was not having the medical insurance.
we can trust our instinct. A lot of times, we can kind of feel an inkling in our heart whether we should or shouldn't do something. So, if you have the alarms going off in your head saying, okay, this is really not smart, you probably shouldn't do it. You know what I mean? But if you really feel like, okay, this is really great, I can see this issue, but it's not that big of an issue. And I think that if something happens, I'm going to be able to take care of it. And I love what you said because, I tell like, hey, walk, don't run, like, because, when you lack those coverages, you're like, but everything in the end, everything's going to be okay. So, and that's just part of being a mom too. You just have this instinct. You know what's good. You know what's bad. I think it's in every area of your life, your career, with your kids, emotionally, romantically. You just kind of have an inkling about, what's happening and what's going on. So trust your instinct. Trust your
Yeah, true.
instinct.
And you're right. Let's give the viewers 3 tips. Let's give them 3 tips or 3 things that they can do, economically, socially, and what was our last one? Girl, I just can't think right now.
Wait, yeah, economic finance, that's the same thing. Okay.
I'm sorry. Economic, social, and then also emotionally. Let's give them some. Let's
Yeah,
give them some tips. Let's leave it with some tips that we can give them, in terms of what they can, do to balance that out. So let's talk about emotionally first. What tip can you give them?
um, balance, physical, spiritual, mental balance. Keep a journal so that you can gauge and you can start to see the signs of when you are being stressed or stretched, and you may explode or implode. One either or, exploding or imploding, both not so healthy. So especially and that's going to help your emotional health if you're physically taking care of yourself, if you're spiritually taking care of yourself, and if you are keeping track of your mental and emotional balance. I think that you're going to be in a good place, especially if you start to do that. So for emotion, that would be my tip, just to have balance in those 3 areas, most definitely.
Okay. My thing, I would say that, you definitely need to have some quiet time. I don't care if it's 15 minutes early in the morning or at night. And one of the things I can recommend, and I discovered yoga in 2000, I think it was 2002. And the
Hmm.
first time I did it, girl, I was all over the place. But then after I did it for like 3 or 4 times, I started to feel this sense of relief in my body, and I slept
Wow.
better. I got the next morning, my mind was clear, and it really, to me, it's sort of addictive. And I got away from it with some of the life changes, but when I started doing it again, immediately I could feel the tension and all those things kind of release out of my body. So if you're not someone who likes to exercise, yoga is something you can do in your house. You can put a DVD in or a Blu-ray, whatever you have. You can pop it in, get your yoga mat right on the floor, and do those poses in your house. And then, I mean, seriously, and it really does work when it comes to relieving tension in your body and making you feel overall, just making you feel a whole lot better. So that's something I recommend. Some of you are probably like, yoga, you know. Well, if you haven't tried it, then you can't knock it yet. So just try it. Really do try it, because it really does help with your body. And it you know, it gets you lean. If you learn how to do it and do it consistently and you're eating right, it can help to get you lean. It really can. So, but if you just want to do it for stress relief in your body, and for just that purpose only, they have DVDs where it's like yoga for stress relief, and they have specific poses that help with that, and it does make a huge difference. For even, like I said, you don't even have to be an exercise buff. Even if you don't exercise, I think yoga is something you can do in your house that makes a huge difference in your body and how you in making you feel, getting the fatigue, you're releasing all of that out of your body, and it does help.
So and it does sound like it's a great way to do. You know, I think it combines all three of those that I talked about too, because it's physical, you know, and it's a great time to reflect, you know, spiritually and emotionally. I think that's a great thing to do. Look, I'm going to try that. I've never done yoga before, so I'm going to try that. Now, is that where they do? No, I think I'm thinking about Pilates. I'm not thinking about
Pilates. Now that's a little bit. Pilates is a whole new game right there. That's the whole stuff. But no, for yoga, it's really about the poses and understanding the poses. And at first, you know, your balance may be off a little bit, but keep doing it, and it doesn't take long. You'll start feeling your muscles stretch. It's just a really good way to relieve all of that out of your body. It's amazing. You know, I think, you know, I'm not someone who's very consistent when it comes to exercise, but, you know, that's something that has been on my list for 2015 to incorporate back into my life, because I don't exercise like I used to. I remember, you know, some years back, probably about 5 years ago, I used to get up at 5 a.m. and go work out every single morning, you know, and do that. Now at 5 a.m., I'm hitting the snooze button and turning right back over. I don't know what all that's about no more.
I used to walk every morning. I used to walk around my block. It would take me an hour to walk the route I wanted to take. But I used to do that 5 a.m. every morning too, and it was a great time for me to reflect. It was a great time for me to find peace, and I definitely felt healthier doing it every morning. So yeah, I think just the physical, just getting in touch with, you know, with your physical body as well as your spiritual, I think that's really important. So okay, so let's move on to the next one. What was the next one? Financial you want to do?
Was, you know, first we had emotional. The next one was no, economic was last. So the social.
Okay. Get out, hang out with some friends. Don't be like, I'm mommy, I got to take care of my kids every day. I don't want to ask anybody to babysit. Get out, have fun. You know, you really have to take some time and relax, and you need to be around other adults. Like, I don't know how much I can stress that, because what happens if you just hang around the kids all day, you get to work and you start treating everybody like their kids. They don't appreciate that. So you get out and hang out with some adults and just really have a good time. You know, don't overdo it, don't go overboard, and don't be excessive. But definitely take the time to get out. You're going to start to feel like a hermit, act like their kids. So I think that's what I would say socially, especially initially. What do you think?
No, I agree with that. You know, absolutely. You know, but you don't want to get out there and be girls gone wild, right? You don't want to really get to that point, but you want to have a good time. And I think too is that sometimes, and I've seen mothers do this, where, like you said, they sacrifice their whole social life and thinking that's being noble. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, that they're doing it all for the kids, and then but you're really, again, it goes back to, you know, you have to balance that out, and like you said, don't go overboard, but do spend that, you know, like you said, having that adult conversation, as you always hear people say, you know, I'm ready for some adult conversation, and just do that. I mean, and plan it. Plan it out. Say maybe twice a month I'm going to go out on a Saturday night, and then plan it out and try to get your babysitter ahead of time, so you can look forward to, that Saturday night 2 weeks from now or a week from now or whatever. But I think planning is part of that. As a parent, you definitely need to plan those things, and you can't be as impromptu as you could when it was just you. So I think planning it out can help, because then it gives you something to look forward to.
Yeah,
outside of just working and coming home and doing all your everyday mother stuff, mother woman stuff. So I think that's important too.
yeah.
Okay, any other tips on social? Now let's move to the economic piece.
Okay.
Anything on, if it's it? So what about the economic piece?
Yeah, I think budgeting and saving are critical for any single mom, because we have so many emergencies that pop up, whether it's running the child to the emergency room and now we have to buy all this medicine because they have an ear infection we didn't expect them to have, or you have, unexpected car repairs. It's really good to get in a good habit of saving and develop a ritual that works for you. Sometimes we try to save big amounts of money, and then we end up falling off when we stop saving. But I think the best thing to do is save consistently, in a way that's comfortable for you, so that you don't fall off saving, that you continue to do that. And because saving is really important. You have kids, you're a single mom, you want your kids to be able to go to college, and you don't want them to have to take out these tremendous loans. So, we have some super moms out there that have really done a great job of ensuring their kids get the scholarships, and they've saved and all that. That wasn't me. You know what I mean? I was the one like, oh my God, my car fell apart. Mama, can you loan me $20? Can you loan me some money? I need, I was always that chick. That's who I was. So I learned the hard way about budgeting and credit and saving. So, take the time right now to really learn and develop systems that work for you, so that you can be successful financially and you don't have to lean on others, but you already have that pillow in case you fall. You know what I mean? So I think that would be my number one.
You're absolutely right, because it does that. I think a lot of the stress that comes from that is the economic piece, and that when you're at a place as a single parent where you have some who don't have those challenges, they make very good money and they're able to take care of their kids with no challenges like that. But then when you get to a place where as a child grows, they say that the needs become more when they get into teen years. They start, when they're more active in, activities, whether it's sports or dance or whatever they're into. Those things cost, and so you definitely want to allow a lot.
Why y'all gotta go on the field trip?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to allot for it. It's just like when they're a baby, you have to allot for diapers, you have to allot for all these other things, right? And then in the middle, it may kind of even kill a little bit depending on their activities. But then it's kind of like you back up here again when in the teen years, when they start getting involved in everything, or those middle school years where it may start there. So you kind of have to allot, like you said, allot for that too, into your budget, and kind of, for the more you can foresee and plan for that, the easier I think it can become. And I know for me, that's something I had to learn. I had to learn how to plan and foresee and put money back for those things. And that's sometimes hard, especially when early in my career, all I had was enough for just to keep things going. Then I had to look at, it was like, wow, how am I gonna pay for cheerleading, practice, or the uniforms, or her dance stuff. And so I had to start looking at planning ahead and looking at the future stuff in order to get those things done. So I think if you can get into, like you said, get into that mode of planning and forecasting like businesses do. Forecasting. I mean, seriously though, forecasting that stuff out, I think it will help, a lot. And so you don't have these big financial bombs and then you're trying to kind of.
Yeah, because the worst feeling a mom can have is to tell their child, no, I'm sorry, you can't be a part of this. I know you really want to, but I can't afford it. You know what I mean? And so many kids have grown up with that story. You know what I mean? And so you don't want your child to have to tell that story. You want to have to be the one living it out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So anything that you can do right now, forecasting and the planning is really important as well. See, I didn't know all that. You know, me, I was that mom. I was like, we really not gonna be able to do this. Like, I know you want to, and you have every right to be angry with me, but we can't do it. And that's a hard truth. That's just the reality of it. That's where I was. Like really and truthfully, I hated to look my child in the eye and have to explain to them, this is not something we're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
So
And I remember specifically I was working for a company, and my daughter had to go to summer school. And the summer school was, oh my goodness, it was on the opposite end of where I was working. And I was calculating the
mm-hmm.
time frame it would take me to go pick her up from home, take her over to the summer school, go back to work, and then pick her up from summer school and then take her home, right? So it was like, okay, not pick her up and then take her, but, drop her off and then go to work. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to take me an hour and a half
Mm-hmm.
every single day to do this, right? And so I got to work one day, and I was so frustrated, and my boss could see it in my face. And she said, well, Sherry, what's going on with you? And I was like, I got this dilemma, and I just don't know what to do. And I told her, I said, it's mandatory summer school. She had to go. And, of course, I had no support system. I was living in Birmingham at the time. I had no
Yeah.
support system. And so I said, it's mandatory. She has to go. And I told her where it was, and she knew how far it was from here. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, because, I had the flexibility to take lunch anytime I wanted to, but it was still kind of a pain. And she said, you're just going to have to do it. And I was like, okay. So, but if I wouldn't have had a supportive boss that understood that and was okay with that, I could have been in a situation where my job could have been in jeopardy. So she was like, just go with, do it. She said, how long is it for? I told her how long she was going to have to do it for. She said, you're just going to have to do it. Just use that extra lunch break and use some extra time. I was already salary, and she was okay with it. And it took so much pressure off of me that she was okay with that, And so I would just leave and say, I'm going to pick up my daughter. She's like, okay. And I would leave, I would go pick her up from way over there and then bring her back home, and I would come back, and it would take me an hour and a half every single day to do it.
Well, and I can piggyback that with my own story, because I had a very similar situation where my daughter was going to a college prep middle school, and it was a 2-hour trek every day. It was half an hour to get her to school from our house, and then another half hour to get to my job, and then a half hour straight shot just to go back and pick her up. So it was like this circle, and then another half hour to get home every day. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so explaining the same thing to my boss and saying, look, my daughter's going to go to the college prep. I have to be, these are the hours I can work on salary too. And we worked it out so that, I was doing social media anyway. I was like, well, we have social media for the game show every day for a half hour just to make up that time that I have to leave early. But, the main thing I think that Sherry and I are actually communicating here with you is that don't be afraid to communicate with your employer when you have a special or unique situation that really needs help, because you don't want to lose your job because you're doing things that, and they don't understand what's going on. So I think to over communicate, not over, don't overshare, but communicate what you have to, so that because a lot of times they are very understanding. I was fortunate, was a family-owned television station, and I had a lot of unique situations where they completely understood everything that was going on in my life. So it was a really great place to work, and it was very family-oriented. And so if you're in a place that isn't family-oriented, it might be time to look for another place of employment,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you need somebody that can support you. You really do need
Absolutely.
people that.
And that is exactly what I was going to say next, is that, you need to think about that when you're a single parent, what type of environment you're walking into, because if it's demanding, if it may not be conducive to the lifestyle you have, and how you're trying to raise your kid. There are plenty of times that same specific job that I would bring I would bring my daughter to work. I would bring her to work. She would sit in my office and help me do stuff, or she
Yeah.
would kind of hang out in the lobby area with people and they just loved her. But I had that kind of manager who would support that. And that took so much pressure off of me. And it helped me to really blossom my career because I felt more confident in my work environment and the people that I work with, that it helped me to be a much better performer as well because I felt like I did have that support. And actually, to be honest, because I
Yeah.
didn't have any family there, a lot of my peers in that particular work environment end up being my extended family while we live there. You know, they
Right.
like, well, if you go into this thing, drop Milana off, we'll keep her. You know, it was like, they were very supportive of the fact that they knew it was just us two. And I think that sometimes that is hard to find
Hmm.
depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, and so if you find it, it is very appreciated. I found myself being very loyal as well. At the end of the day, you can trust those people. You assume that you can trust those people around your kids if you're with them every day. And I know the people that I work with, I could definitely trust my kids around them. You know what I mean? And so you always have to be careful with that. You always have to,
Oh
like I said,
yeah,
follow that intuition and trust your heart. But yeah, these the people that I work with, I definitely consider them family, and I know they considered me the same. And I was very loyal to the company, and I did work extremely hard for them just because I knew that they cared enough about me. I mean, I even had a situation where I had to go and fight for child support, where I was like, I don't know why we trying to lower the child support, but I need all child support I can get,
right.
and they literally, gave me a raise after the case. They were like, oh, okay, we're gonna give you a raise because we know, girl, so
And
it was,
that shows that they value you, and that is so. Those are the kind of
yeah,
stories that we want the women who are watching to hear, just to piggyback off of that, I remember specifically was one Christmas, and my car broke down, and I took it was well, it was December, of course it was before Christmas, but it was in December, and my car broke down, and so I took it to the shop, and he told me what was wrong with it, and the money that it was going to cost, it was going to be close to $1,000 to get it fixed, and I was, my face just dropped because the money that I was going to use to have Christmas for her was part of that money, right, for her. So I had to take all of that money and get this car, get my car fixed so I can get back and forth to work because I was catching some rides while it was, so I had some coworkers who lived close by who would pick me up and drop me off while it was in the shop. And so I was at work, and I was in my office, and I was upset. I'm like, why is everybody always catching me in my office while I'm upset? And
right.
this time it was the operations manager who came in and to ask me something, and I was like, I'm so sorry. He said, what's wrong? And I said, I'm just upset because I had to spend all this money on getting this car fixed for Christmas, and now I'm sitting here with, not having this money to give for Christmas for my daughter. And he just caught me at that time. And then a couple of days later, next thing I know, I had gift cards and money from the leadership team,
Oh my God.
to say, Sherry, because they love my daughter anyway, because it's almost like she can come in and get anything she wanted. But they were like, get Christmas for your baby. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just felt like, man, these people really care about me. And that's a good feeling when you got, especially in the workplace, when you have people who care about you, who do things like that. So when I did leave that place, it was really bittersweet because I knew I would not work somewhere else with this kind of camaraderie again, and I knew that. Yeah, so it was good. So I just want to share that story too.
Yeah.
That
Baby, don't cry. 'Cause
workplace
this is a good story.
yeah, I mean
Mhm.
it made a big difference because sometimes you can work somebody like, oh well, best of luck to you, Merry Christmas, you know what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely made for me to want to push harder and excel and really do good. Not that I wasn't already doing good work, but it definitely, like you said, it definitely made me more committed and loyal to what I was doing in the workplace.
Most
That kind of
definitely.
support.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So,
Any last things you'd like to share with the viewers about our topic tonight, Stephanie?
no, just believe in yourself. know that what you're going through, you're not the first person to have gone through it. There are other people that have gone through what you're going through. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Help is a wonderful thing. It may, you may have to go through some humility, some humble moments, but it's definitely worth it to take care of your child and to take care of yourself. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and keep always believe in yourself, because you are enough. If you weren't able to do this, you wouldn't be in the position. So
Yeah,
just know.
that I'm glad you said that, Stephanie, because I think for me, I just want to share that, again, never let anybody tell you who you are. And I remember specifically when I was going through, I had left my husband, and my daughter was really young, and I stayed with a friend, and she was kind of doing some things, and she had a kid too, and she was kind of, and I was like, why are you doing this? I mean, you're definitely better than this. Why? And she's like, you need to stop trying to be something you're not, and trying to be better than, you think you're better than everybody else, and you're trying to be this and you're trying to be that. And so I looked at her and I said, why can't it just be that I'm being who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and that who I am wants more for myself than what I have right now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, at that point, I said, you really do not understand who I am at all. Because if you knew that, you would know that I know that there's something better for me out here, and I'm going to, whatever that's going to be, I'm going to make that happen. So I say that to say is that,
Yeah.
having this, being a single mother is definitely not a death sentence in no way, and I think all of us on here who are watching know that. But there are going to be times when you may doubt yourself. You may doubt the decisions that you're making. But don't do that. Don't do that, and do not think for one moment that you can't juggle both having that kid and having the career you want. Yes, you're not going to be able to have it all at one time, but you definitely need to. And it goes back to what Stephanie said about the decisions, the choices, right?
Right.
That you make can make a big difference in what path that you're going on with your career and how accelerated that's going to be for you in terms of the choices that you make and balancing that out. I
Mm-hmm.
think single motherhood is never an easy ride, period, because there is a lot of dynamics that go involved in that when it comes to like dating and involving other people into your life in that aspect, which is something you always have to think about, be careful. Again, the
Mm-hmm.
career, because again, if you get a job, you may not be able to travel. If that may be a desire of yours, yes, that might be something you have to put on the back burner if you don't have a support system who can allow for you to travel the way you want to. So there are going to be times where you may have to make specific decisions that you may not be happy with, but you have to look at what is going to be your end result and forecast those things out. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I want to share is making sure you forecast those things out. That's something I wish that I would have learned early on, raising my daughter, that someone would have told me about, is doing the forecasting along earlier, because I didn't do that. But sometimes I would just like wing it.
Right. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Let's roll with it, like
Right.
Luke song, roll out. That's what I was doing, just rolling out, girl. Just roll out, just rolling out. So
Right.
but
It
I
is.
just really
Yeah.
wish I would have learned that early on, would have been the forecasting piece, and I think my stress level would have come down a little bit more than what it was. And I had to learn that. So
Mm-hmm.
if I can tell you anything, learn how to forecast it out if you can. And sometimes we have to learn to, one of the things that I think I said in one of the quotes was that we want to learn how to work to live and not work to survive. And so I think
Yeah.
that we need to learn that, to work to
Mm-hmm.
live and not work to survive. And I think as a single parent, especially if the economic standpoint of taking care of, providing for yourself and your kids is tough, it's hard to come out of that survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, it is hard to see past that. But you have to
Mm-hmm.
stay focused to be able to get beyond that. So I could talk about that some more, but I'm going to cut it loose because we're already 15 minutes behind off of schedule anyway. So because we could talk about this
Okay.
more. But I think, Stephanie, I think we should do a part two. Um, Viewers that you're viewing, please share your feedback with us. You can Twitter, Facebook. You can also send an email to ssims@bcwnetwork.com and give us feedback on some of our career conversations. What career conversations would you like to see us do? topics that you would like to see us cover when it comes to being a Black career woman. We would love to be able to, to accommodate you in terms of some of the topics that you would like to see us talk about. And then you guys provide, questions for us that we can answer for you guys to get involved. So I want to go ahead and let you guys know that we are going to be on our Tuesday Real Career Talk call, which is next Tuesday, March 31st. We are going to have Tanisha Sykes back. Tanisha Sykes is a personal finance and careers expert. She also is she's a former senior editor of Essence Magazine, who did the career article for us during our career series, which was Does Your Communication Style Help or Hinder You? And she's also actually have written for a lot of other publications like Black Enterprise and things like that. So she is coming back on our Tuesday Real Career Talk call to talk to our viewers and give us some Tanisha tips. So you gotta tune in for that. And then also too, next month we're going to be doing a little bit some different things with our career conversations next month. We're going to have Vanessa Cunningham on April 22nd. She's going to be talking about health and wellness for Black women in terms of, how to relieve stress and things like that, dealing with those things in the workplace overall. So she's going to be talking about some of those health-related things. And then we're also going to have time management and productivity expert Dara Fairman is going to be on our career conversation as well. She's coming up soon. Her dates to be announced. And she's going to be talking about time management and productivity, and I think that's going to be a huge one. I'm probably going to be taking a lot of notes when it comes to time management for that. So she's going to be on that one coming up soon as well. And then also to save the dates, we're going to be posting this really soon, but we are going to be announcing when our BCWN conference is going to be, and it is going to be soon. So we're going to be announcing the save the date for that. And then that way you guys can see what we've got going on, and hopefully you guys can start doing some early bird registration soon. So I'm looking forward to sharing the save the date with you as well. Stephanie, do you have any last words before I kind of close out with some quotes?
No, unless I do just a personal plug. I just published my first book. I'm very excited about it. I just published those. It's if you visit www.stephaniedmoore.com, you can look at it. It's available on Kindle, and you can also order it on paperback. But it'll let you know some of the choices that I made as a single parent, while having a career, some of the bad choices that I made, and how I was able to shut down the echoes of negativity and embrace, the good things in life and what God has for me. So okay. I think that's all. I like that.
Now repeat that again, where they can find your book at, Stephanie.
Okay, it's www.stephaniedmoore.com, and you can order the Kindle version or the paperback, and you're able to read the first chapter too. So.
And you can also find Stephanie. You can also find Stephanie on Twitter at @thatprchick.
That's right.
And Stephanie does frequently jump on our calls on Tuesdays too. So you may hear her on a call periodically. She likes to jump on there when she has some time, and sharing dialogue for those as well. So just wanted to share that with you. Last thing I want to share with you guys is that there's a quote by a well-known pastor, and a lot of people like to hear me say this, and as I think a couple of times it takes them a while to catch a hold of that. But the quote is, "The life God gave you is larger than the life you've been living." So just remember that as you discover what your gifts are, using those gifts to really become the person that you want to be, and know that whatever your situation is, or whatever your life is like right now, just know that God has given you the gifts and the abilities to make your life so much larger than you could ever imagine. So with that being said, I'll leave you with my quote, which is, "Know your worth, discover your strength, and work in your purpose." Until our next career conversation, you guys, I know it's hump day, but have a good rest of the week, and we will talk to you soon. Stephanie, stay on the line for me. Good night, everybody.
Bye.